We will now begin my attempt to convince you to vote Republican. First, I should say, and this is important, Donald Trump will get me if I don't say this. AFS is nonpartisan. We're a 501c3 educational organization, and we never endorse candidates or parties. But individuals like me can be partisan, and I certainly am. To lead in a little, before we get to this quote, I should go back, but I don't know how to do that. The talk today is actually going to be about the Republican Party of old. The fact that from the 1860s to the 1960s, that's good. Okay. From the 1860s to the 1960s, the Democrats and Republicans in many respects switched places. So I'm going to refresh your memory. Most of you probably are fully aware of the history of all of this and not going to learn something new in that regard. But the actual words from some of these Republicans are well worth reviewing, in my opinion. And this is one of them. This is from President James Garfield, who said the divorce between church and state should be absolute. And there are a variety of quotes here supporting secularism, by which I mean church-state separation. Robert Greene Ingersoll said when Paine was born, Thomas Paine, the world was religious, the pulpit was the real throne, and the churches were making every effort to crush out of the brain the idea that it had the right to think. Robert Greene Ingersoll, there's his picture, was the most famous freethinker of the 19th century. He was arguably the most famous living American in the country, even more famous than presidents, and very famous worldwide as well. Now, of course, he's not much remembered. But Ingersoll, and this is the important point for today's talk, Ingersoll was an important leader of the Republican Party during his lifetime. He toed and froed with presidents. He was Attorney General of Illinois. He gave an extremely famous nomination speech at one of the national conventions of the Republican Party. He was very much a Republican. He was in some ways at the edge of the mainstream of Republican, but he was not considered to be out of the mainstream of the party. We'll talk a little bit more about some of his relations to the party later. The founder of the party, the guy, was Abraham Lincoln. And Lincoln said in his speeches more than once, as I once heard an old man named Glenn in Indiana say, when I do good, I feel good. When I do bad, I feel bad. And that's my religion. Lincoln was not a member of a church. U.S. Grant, who was, of course, famous for being a general in the Civil War, a very successful one, he served 2 terms as president, Republican president. And he said, leave the matter of religion to the family altar, the church, and the private schools supported entirely by private contributions. Keep the church and state forever separated. To go back to Ingersoll, in all ages, hypocrites called priests have put crowns upon the heads of thieves called kings. Now, not everyone in the Republican Party was as irreligious as Robert Greene Ingersoll, but he was accepted as a major leader of the party. Theodore Teddy Roosevelt said to discriminate against a thoroughly upright citizen because he belongs to some particular church or because, like Abraham Lincoln, he has not avowed his allegiance to any church is an outrage against that liberty of conscience, which is one of the foundations of American life. Ingersoll again. It is contended by many that ours is a Christian government founded upon the Bible, and that all who look upon that book as false or foolish are destroying the foundation of our country. The truth is, our government is not founded upon the rights of gods, but upon the rights of men. Our Constitution was framed not to declare and uphold the deity of Christ, but the sacredness of humanity. Ours is the first government made by the people and for the people. It's the only nation with which the gods have had nothing to do. Grant, again, I would suggest the taxation of all property equally, whether church or corporation. Calvin Coolidge, not too often quoted, but a Republican president. The fundamental precept of liberty is toleration. We cannot permit any inquisition, either from within or without the law, or apply any religious test to the holding of office. The mind of America must be forever free. So Ingersoll was not the only free thinker. Hoover, also a great Republican president in these economic times, I'm sure you remember him well. I come of Quaker stock. My ancestors were persecuted for their beliefs. Here they sought and found religious freedom. By blood and conviction, I stand for religious tolerance, both in act and in spirit. And a more modern Republican, Barry, asserts a president, but he didn't quite make it. Barry Goldwater in 1994, mark my word, if and when these preachers get control of the Republican Party, and they're sure trying to do so, it's going to be a terrible damn problem. And Gerald Ford, who was president, it's difficult for me to see how religious exercises can be a requirement in public schools, given our constitutional requirement of separation of church and state. Republicans of that era of the 19th century and after were pro-labor. This is another one from Abraham Lincoln, the Republican. Labor is prior to and independent of capital. Capital is only the fruit of labor and could never have existed if labor had not first existed. Labor is the superior of capital and deserves much the higher consideration. And he said that as president in his State of the Union during wartime. This one is not from Bernie Sanders. It's important to note that. Rutherford B. Hayes, a Republican president. The real difficulty is with the vast wealth and power in the hands of the few and the unscrupulous who represent or control capital. Hundreds of laws are in the interest of these men and against the interest of working men. These need to be exposed and repealed.
Sundar Pichai, Mark Zuckerberg.
There's Rutherford Hayes. He's the guy who wrote that. And he was the president.
Bill Gates.
The Republicans also were on the record as being in favor of decency. This is Ingersoll again. To love justice, to long for the right, to love mercy, to pity the suffering, to assist the weak, to forget wrongs and remember benefits, to love the truth. This is the religion of reason, the creed of science. This satisfies the brain and the heart. William Howard Taft, President and later Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, there's nothing so despicable as a secret society that is based on religious prejudice and will attempt to defeat a man because of his religious beliefs. Eisenhower, you remember him. He was Supreme Commander of the Allied forces in World War II, served two 2 terms as president. If a political party does not have its foundation in the determination to advance a cause that is right and that is moral, then it is not a political party. It's merely a conspiracy to seize power. This one, another Ingersoll, one of my favorites. This could have been Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Mayor Mamdani. If nobody has too much, everybody will have enough. Republican, 19th century. Calvin Coolidge, what a wonderful guy.
Huh.
Didn't say a lot, but when a man begins to feel that he is the only one who can lead in this republic, he is guilty of treason to the spirit of our institutions. You maybe can guess who I had in mind when Republicans were pro-women's rights and pro-civil rights. Give to every human being every right that you claim for yourself. Ingersoll was probably, well, he was thoroughgoing for women's equality and women's vote. He was ahead of most Republicans of that era, but he was even further ahead of most Democrats of that era. He also said, as long as woman regards the Bible as the charter of her rights, she will be the slave of man. The Bible was not written by a woman. Within its leaves, there is nothing but humiliation and shame. And this is clearly socialist. Well, it's at least anti-corporate. And I've already showed you his picture, and I'm sure you memorized it. This is Rutherford B. Hayes. This is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people no longer. It is a government of corporations, by corporations, and for corporations. Not Bernie Sanders, I swear. A warning about the U.S. Supreme Court from a Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. Presidents come and go, but the Supreme Court goes on forever. The Republicans of that era were pro-government, pro-infrastructure, and supported those ideas. And it goes back to the founder, Lincoln himself. My politics are short and sweet like the old woman's dance. Sounds ageist and sexist to me. I don't even know what it means. I'm in favor of a national bank. I'm in favor of the internal improvement system. These are my sentiments and political principles. This is what he said as he launched his very first political campaign in 1832. Among the internal improvements he supported were railroads, canals, and more, and the Transcontinental Railroad and the establishment of the system of land-grant colleges, many other examples as well. Probably the founding statement of the Republican Party, in my opinion, is this. This is from Lincoln, the legitimate object of government is to do for a community of people whatever they need to have done but cannot do at all or cannot do so well do for themselves in their separate and individual capacities. Pro-government, pro-big government. Also supported in a very big way moral intervention. Alexander Stephens of Georgia, vice president of the Confederacy, said in a speech in Savannah just as the Civil War was getting going, cornerstone of the society of the Confederacy is white supremacy and slavery. And Lincoln led the Republicans and the nation in saying at a bloody great cost, no. So what's the moral of this story? Well, I'm not going to sing. Diane told me she'd kick my ass if I did. Besides, the meter's wrong. The old gray GOP, she ain't what she used to be. Ain't what she used to be, ain't what she used to be. The old gray GOP, she ain't what she used to be many long years ago. The only other thing I would say is you can't judge a candidate only by the party label. If you were voting in 1878, yes, vote Republican. That would be my recommendation. Not going to give you any recommendation for now because we're a 501c3 organization.